Talk about falling from grace. So we should talk about Sarah Ferguson. She's going to have to find her own home after she and Andrew were told to leave the Royal Lodge. Where does she sit in all of this, and what's her future look like?
Well, you look at what has actually happened here, and I think the level of public revulsion over the last few days and weeks has reached fever pitch, because certainly that Andrew thought that he was completely shielded from that. He thought that the King would protect him, and of course, I think whilst the King and the Queen have of course said that their sympathies lie with the victims and survivors of sexual abuse, that this was the King's brother, and he felt there was a duty of care towards him. He felt as though he needed to protect him. But then reports of Fergie certainly asking for somewhere else to live after she was stripped of her Duchess of York title. The public were not certainly happy with that. There was certainly calls for her to stand on her own 2 feet. Why on earth was she still living in a royal residence, even though she's been divorced from Andrew for 30 odd years? So, Fergie has a very successful career on the back of her publishing life. And she will have to stand on her own 2 feet now. There is absolutely no reason why she should be afforded anything for the royal family. And I think that you look at her career and it's certainly be in tatters now because of her own relationship with Jeffrey Epstein.
If you thought the British monarchy was all about stiff upper lips, afternoon tea, and silent dignity, then you clearly haven't met the human whirlwind known as Sarah Ferguson. Most people enter the royal family through a glass carriage. Sarah entered like a glitter-covered hand grenade with the pin already pulled out. She didn't just break the mold, she sat on it, accidentally set it on fire, and then tried to sell the remains to a lifestyle magazine for a cool $500,000. We're talking about the woman who turned the Duchess of York title into a global brand for weight loss, juice machines, and questionable business deals. From the high-stakes drama of the Buckingham Palace corridors to being essentially exiled to the fringes of high society, her life is a masterclass in how to fall from grace and then somehow bounce back using nothing but sheer unadulterated audacity. Stick around, because we're diving deep into the chaos, the scandals, and the absolute madness of the woman the tabloids affectionately and occasionally cruelly duped Duchess of Pork. Quick favor, if you're loving this, hit the subscribe button. Over 92% of viewers haven't yet. It's free, takes a second, and means the world to us. Thanks if you did. Now back to the show. To understand the spectacular collapse of Sarah Ferguson's royal career, we first have to understand the sheer, blinding speed of her ascent. In the mid-1980s, the royal family was looking for a breath of fresh air, and Sarah was less of a breeze and more of a Category 5 hurricane. She was the fun one, the redhead who rode horses, laughed too loudly at dinner parties, and actually seemed to enjoy being alive, a trait that is traditionally frowned upon in the more dusty corners of Windsor Castle. When she married Prince Andrew in 1986, the British public was obsessed. She was the perfect foil to the shy, ethereal Princess Diana. While Diana was the tragic fashion icon, Sarah was the relatable, boisterous daughter of a major who wasn't afraid to get her boots muddy. But as we know in the world of British politics and royalty, the higher you climb, the harder the concrete feels when you inevitably faceplant. The honeymoon period didn't just end, it evaporated, replaced by a media scrutiny so intense it would make a seasoned politician weep into their morning porridge. The press, which had initially championed her as a relatable every woman, quickly pivoted to mocking her weight, her fashion sense, and her perceived lack of royal decorum. It was the beginning of a long, slow slide into the kind of disgrace that usually requires a change of identity and a move to a remote island.
Sarah Ferguson has been labelled desperate and a degenerate in the latest instalment of the Epstein files, with emails between her and Jeffrey Epstein revealing she was regularly chasing money and attention from the convicted pedophile. The exchanges seemingly indicate that the disgraced ex-wife of Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was very attached to Jeffrey Epstein, telling him he was her pillar. She also wrote, "I am at your service, just marry me, and this, when are you going to employ me? Also, and phew, you still love me." Here's more from...
But before we get into the toe-sucking, and oh yes, we're getting to the toe sucking. We have to talk about the financial desperation that started to creep in. Being a royal is expensive business, especially when you have a taste for the finer things and a husband who is constantly away at sea. Sarah found herself in a gilded cage with a very large credit card bill and a dwindling supply of goodwill. The cracks began to show as she struggled to adapt to the rigid expectations of the firm. She wasn't just a fish out of water, she was a shark in a bird bath. The tension between her and the Duke of Edinburgh was legendary, with the Prince Philip reportedly viewing her as the personification of everything wrong with the modern world. This wasn't just a domestic spat, this was a clash of civilizations between the old guard of the 19th century and a woman who just wanted to have a bit of a laugh and perhaps a second helping of dessert. As the marriage to Andrew began to crumble under the weight of long distances and even longer scandals, the stage was set for one of the most public and humiliating divorces in the history of the British Isles. Now, if you think a divorce is the end of the story, you clearly haven't been paying attention to the sheer resilience of Sarah Ferguson. While most people would retreat to a quiet cottage in the Cotswolds to lick their wounds, Sarah decided to take her show on the road. The 1992 separation was a turning point that shifted her from Royal Duchess to international tabloid target number 1. This was the era of the infamous photographs taken in the south of France. You know the ones. The ones involving a financial advisor, a sun lounger, and a very enthusiastic approach to podiatry. When those photos hit the front pages while Sarah was staying in Balmoral with the rest of the royal family, the resulting explosion was visible from space. It was the ultimate disgrace, a breach of protocol so profound that it effectively ended her life as a working royal in an afternoon. She was chased out of the inner circle, not by physical force, but by the cold, icy silence of a queen who was very much not amused. Transitioning from the height of royalty to the depths of public mockery is enough to break anyone, but for Sarah, it was just the opening act of a very bizarre second chapter. Imagine waking up one day as the Duchess of York, and then the next day, a woman who needs to pay back millions of pounds in debt while being banned from every palace in the country. This is where the chased out of UK narrative really takes hold. She became a royal refugee, seeking solace and, more importantly, a paycheck in the United States. If the British wouldn't have her, the Americans certainly would. They love a title, even a disgraced one, and Sarah was more than happy to lean into her Duchess persona to sell everything from Weight Watchers to Wedgwood china. She became a pioneer of the royal for hire industry, proving that while you can take the girl out of the palace, you can't take the desire for a luxury lifestyle out of the girl. It was a hustle of epic proportions, a dizzying whirlwind of talk show appearances, book deals, and product endorsements that kept her afloat while her reputation back home continued to take a battering.
And Phew, You Still Love Me. Here's more from journalist Andrew Pearce.
5 days after that pervert was released from prison, Sarah Ferguson was taking her daughters, or offering to take her daughters, aged 19 and 17, to have lunch with a paedophile. You could not make up.
But beneath the polished veneer of the American comeback, things were getting darker. The pressure to maintain a certain standard of living led to increasingly desperate decisions. We're talking about a woman who was once the daughter-in-law of the sovereign, now finding herself caught in the cash for access sting operation by the news of the world. In a moment of sheer madness, she was filmed offering access to her ex-husband, Prince Andrew, for the princely sum of £500,000. It was a disaster. It wasn't just a mistake, it was a total collapse of judgment that made her previous scandals look like a minor clerical error. The footage showed a woman who was clearly at the end of her tether, trading on a name she no longer had a right to use, in a desperate attempt to clear her mounting debts. The fallout was immediate and brutal. She was once again the laughingstock of the nation, a tragic figure who had traded her dignity for a suitcase full of cash that never even existed. Speaking of things that shouldn't exist, let's talk about the recent allegations regarding medication abuse that have started to swirl around her inner circle. In the world of high-stakes celebrity and royal proximity, there is often a shadow side that involves the misuse of prescription drugs to cope with the crushing weight of public expectation and personal failure. Reports have surfaced suggesting that the pressure of her disgraced status and the constant need to perform led to a reliance on substances that provided a temporary escape from reality. While Sarah has always been a figure of high energy, some have questioned whether that energy was entirely natural or a product of a chemical helping hand. It adds a tragic layer to an already complicated story, a woman trying to medicate the pain of being an outsider in a world she was once destined to lead. It is a stark reminder that the glamour of royal life often comes with a very high price tag, one that isn't always paid in British pounds. Despite the endless cycle of scandal, there is something undeniably fascinating about the way Sarah Ferguson refuses to stay down. She's like a political weeble. She wobbles, she falls over, she gets caught in a sting operation, but she always pops back up with a new hat and a plan to save the world. Her relationship with Prince Andrew remains one of the great mysteries of modern Britain. They are the world's most happily divorced couple, living together at Royal Lodge, appearing together at events, and seemingly supporting each other through their respective and very significant falls from grace. It is a strange symbiotic relationship built on shared trauma and a mutual understanding of what it's like to be the black sheep of the world's most famous family. While the rest of the royals maintain a polite distance, Andrew and Sarah remain a united front of chaos, a duo that seems determined to weather the storm together, no matter how many lightning bolts the universe throws at them.
Let's have a look at a few more emails Fergie sent Epstein, a convicted pedophile at this point. She wrote, "I have never been more touched by a friend's kindness than your compliment to me in front of my girls. And this, you are a legend. I really don't have the words to describe my love, gratitude for your generosity and kindness." And this one, not sure yet, just waiting for Eugenie to come back from a shagging weekend. I mean, why would you speak like that to a man like Jeffrey Epstein?
The legacy of Sarah Ferguson is a cautionary tale about the dangers of the royal spotlight, but it also is a story of incredible endurance. She navigated an era of British history where the media was at its most predatory and the royal family was at its most rigid. She broke every rule in the book, sometimes twice, and paid a heavy price for it. But in the end, she carved out a space for herself that no one could take away. She proved that you can be disgraced and still successful, you can be chased out and still find your way back, and you can be a duchess while still being entirely unapologetically yourself. In the grand soap opera of the British monarchy, she remains one of the most compelling characters, a woman who refused to fade into the background and instead chose to live her life at full volume, scandals and all. In the end, Sarah Ferguson's life isn't just about the mistakes she made. It's about the way she handled the fallout. She didn't hide, she didn't disappear. She took the disgrace, she took the debt, and she turned it into a career that has lasted decades. She's the ultimate political survivor in a niche where survival is never guaranteed. As the British royal family enters a new era, her story serves as a reminder that the institution is only as strong as the people within it. And sometimes, the most interesting people are the ones who don't fit in at all. She might have been chased out, but she never stopped running, and in the process, she became something much more interesting than a mere duchess. She became a legend of the British tabloid age, a woman who lived 1,000 lives in the span of one, and who is still against all odds, the one and only Fergie. Thank you for watching.